writ large, the broader opposition, has triumphed in this moment. The ANC is now, if you like, a minority party in that sense. And therefore, it's an important moment for us to take cognizance of, because it is important that a party is held accountable for load shedding, unemployment, crime going forward. I cannot. For me, it remains to be seen. What's got to happen now, the job now, is to get adults in the room. Make sure we think for 60 million South Africans, not for political parties. Build a new center, because if the center collapses, I can assure you, you are going to end up with ethnic mobilization becoming a permanent theme of this country. We can't have it. No, that's what I'm saying. I can't reiterate this again. Let the 12 party leaders that are going to be in parliament, we need to have an urgent meeting. We need to have a conversation about how do we think for the 60 million South Africans. Let's create a government that works and is stable, because on the 16th of June, for argument's sake, that's potentially after parliament has convened and all of that, South Africans need to know that there's a tangible plan for electricity, for safety, for their own economic growth. We are certainly open to doing that. I am so committed to that process that I'm saying to all the leaders, even those who have been calling me, to say this has got to be a moment where we strip aside political patronage, but really focus on ultimately what this country needs. We've got to think for the 60 million.
Who's called you?
I can't say.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'd rather not get into that at this point in time. But as I say, for us, however disappointing with some of the numbers that we got, we're confident that BOSA is in parliament, it's on the board, it's important that we build on from here, and we'll continue to fight for an education that works for our kids, for communities that are safe, and ultimately for a job in every home. That's what we're about.
Final question from me is, so, there was a lot of posturing going into this about who you'd talk to, who you'd partner with, who would be left out in the political cold. But a lot of analysts are saying it's down to the knife edge right now, given the way the numbers are shaping up. A lot of decisions and, thought processes you had before these elections go out the window. It's about political survival and whether, you face an existential threat depending on who you partner with. So just talk to us about, okay, you don't want to say who's called you, that's fine, fair enough, but who will you not partner with? Absolutely.
Look, I think for me, in my view, there have been 4 scenarios that have been put on the table, right? The first one is naturally an ANC with a conglomeration of parties. I'm not certain that that's sustainable, given some of the challenges that we could face about that. There's an ANC IFP kind of conversation, and it may very well suit KZN, etc. There's a ANC DA conversation, and then there's a ANC MK conversation that has its own problems. My conversations with people have been about how do we avoid a leadership instability, how do we avoid a recapture of the state. So maybe the short answer is, let's not deal with people who are corrupt, whose interests are going to be about looting. So even if it was a conversation with the ANC, for argument's sake, it could not be premised on people who would sit in the list, who were listed in the State Capture Commission. So that's always, for me, if you want to clean up the state, you've got to do a proper job now.
Thank you.
The DA says they've got more black supporters since you left. What do you say about that?
Sorry, Zara. Firstly, I think most analysts could tell you the truth. What happened to the DA's marginal growth, as they describe it, is a return of Freedom Front Plus voters. We got 3.6 million votes in 2019. They got 3.3 million votes. Surely, guys, if you are the official opposition at a time where the government lost over 14 points at the polls, and you can't even gain 1% of those 14, like you can't grow by beyond 1%, and then you want to browbeat and say you've done extraordinarily well, I think it's disingenuous at best.
basically the pipeline coalition talks become public.
Yeah,
Instead of being behind closed doors, don't you think it's time for us as South Africans to know what are being discussed in these coalition talks?
of course, of course. I certainly would agree with you, and what I would suggest as a going forward. That's why I think Parliament is in some ways a very good space to meet, because in that space, it's a space of transparency. And I can't hide my call. If you are going to create even a sense of a government of any national unity or any sense of national interests, as it were, let it be done publicly. Let the people get to know. And that's why Parliament is a space that's always transparent, because then you'll know what is fair, what is right. I think I agree with you. Some of the backdoor dealings have got their own problems, because you're talking money, you're talking all sorts of things. That's why I reiterate this point. Let there be a meeting in Parliament with leadership that ensures that we think for the 60 million, not for the narrow few.
Mr. Maimane, what's the chances of a rerun of the elections?
We haven't raised an objection. We're keen to get on with the business of government. South Africa can't wait. So I'm not part of that whole campaign.
Sorry, Mr. Maimane, I don't know if you've answered, I've maybe joined a little bit late. The objections being lodged, etc., do you think it's a tactic to delay finally clearing the votes to start negotiating maybe other parties with coalition members?
I think I responded to that earlier to say we're not necessarily a part of any objections in that regard. Yeah, the IEC gets a pass for these elections. I've engaged the African Union on election results, and so now we take the thing going forward. We've got to focus on going forward. So parties that have raised the objections, I think the IEC must deal with those, but we're not part of that.
Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, everybody.